Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer and career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. From career struggles and anxiety to feeling like nothing is ever going to work out, I'm here to explore all the messy stuff that breaks us down and builds us up. So join me as we transform ourselves and finally ditch the struggle. Hi, everyone. We have a conversation today with Jyoti Pannu, who is a coach and realtor, and she went through some crazy work stuff, as so many of us have, and her story is incredible. I can't wait to share it with you. So let me read her bio, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Jyoti is a career and transition coach and realtor who helps women move through big life changes with clarity and confidence, whether it's a new job, a fresh start, or a new home. After years in leadership within the healthcare sector, she saw firsthand how many women felt stuck in roles they'd outgrown, and now she coaches women through these pivotal moments, helping them get unstuck, define their next move, and step into leadership or life with purpose. As a realtor, she brings that same clarity and care to women navigating real estate transitions, especially during times of personal transition like marriage, divorce, or the empty nest phase. Through both roles, she offers grounded support, real-world tools, and deep listening to help women design a next chapter that feels like home, inside and out. Let's dive into the conversation. Welcome, Jyoti. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to be here.
Rumor has it that you have not had a linear career, and we love those kind of guests on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just been through a few different journeys, and I found that almost every decade of my life has brought on a new change, and more so in the last little bit. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we will dive back into what you did before that.
Perfect. So I'm a realtor licensed in Ontario, as well as I'm a coach focusing predominantly on career coaching for women. And then once they transition into leadership roles, coaching related to just, embodying that new leadership role and the work that they have to do through that. But yeah, real estate and coaching.
How did you end up in career coaching?
So I started out as a frontline healthcare employee. I was not in nursing. I was in what's called biomedical engineering, a very technical part of the hospital. And throughout the years, I had a lot of mentoring and sort of passive coaching that came into my life that took me from frontline to quality improvement related roles, down leadership roles, to patient experience, to even managing actual clinical teams during the pandemic. So that was a phase. And then after that, I moved into med tech, and my very last role was an executive director for a med tech company. So I thought with each one of the transitions, I was lucky enough to have support and mentors and coaches around me. And I always found every time I spoke with a coach, my journey went from struggle to something that would have taken 6 months, maybe even a year to figure out. As soon as you have a conversation, just my mind opened up to the possibilities a lot more quickly. So I went through ICF with the Adler Institute and Red Maple here in Ontario. To get the right training, just to make sure that as I got into it, I support my clients. And it's something that's just been, it gives me so much joy to see the transformation in people as I meet with them.
And what made you seek out coaching in the first place? Or did they just kind of find you? Was that something that was part of the career path that you were on, that they offered that or they encouraged it?
No, this just started because I would organically, throughout my career, as soon as I moved into leadership roles, as down as a coordinator role in a hospital, I would have others come up to me and say, "How did you do this?" Or ask questions about how I'm leading my team, how I'm doing the work. So I did that work as I was moving forward. But once I got into actual true leadership roles, I myself got a coach, and from there, because I was trying to learn how to lead better. One of my core values is service. So I just wanted to make sure that everything I do, I'm doing right by my team. And I found that things that at times I would take, months or at least hours to learn through reading, and I'm an avid podcast listener, as I was sharing with you before. As soon as I met with a coach, this was, the light bulb moment would happen. And then following that, the work that I would do, it would be significantly different. because I saw the value in it, it's something that I started pursuing just to make sure that when people do come to me, and at that time, this wasn't even a career focused coaching, this was to support my team so that I can do it better. But the work just gives me so much joy that I've transitioned it to a more full-time focus.
And how did you make that leap from working in like med care, clearly a different role, different roles,
Yeah.
from that to real estate and coaching?
Yeah, so it's all, as you mentioned at the beginning, it hasn't been linear. It's just been a bit of a journey. So real estate initially was, even at a personal level, I went through a divorce about 11 years ago. And I remember my very first call was to someone in my friend circle saying, I need to find a place to stay because I couldn't stay in the home that we were in. I had a 4-year-old at that time. And this individual, my real estate agent at that time, the way she supported me, I mean, I was crying in her car. There was just a lot of trauma that was coming out of the end of the relationship. Plus, also, I think, as you can imagine, not knowing where you're going to live, not knowing what you even needed. And my brain and my sort of emotions couldn't focus on what are the things that I need to focus on beyond just, I need to get out of here. And my real estate agent, I'm still very good friends with her. The way she supported me, it was one of those things where I'm like, if I'm ever in a position, I want to be able to do that for others. And then over time, I did work through, as I said, like my career moved forward and I was able to buy more than one properties. And I thought, instead of paying somebody else, I'm good with numbers, I'm good with people, let me just get into it. So it was a very passive approach to get into real estate. But about 6 months to over a year ago, my very stable role started on just becoming this chaotic environment that was having very negative impacts on my health. So that's when, and I don't know if well, I'm sure we'll get into that
Yeah,
conversation soon as
yeah.
well because of the topic of the podcast. Um, but it all fell into place. I do believe in the universe just kind of aligning things and preparing for us, preparing us for what's coming next. And that's where all of this played a role.
I love that you kind of explain it as pursuing it passively. Like you weren't aggressively going after, I'm going to be a real estate agent, top agent in Toronto. I'm going to have my own reality show with this. It's not
No.
going to be selling Sunset. Or you can go there, but that you kind of did it on the side. I'm a huge fan of, I want to say side hustle, but I feel in the last few years that's really gotten a negative
Mhm.
connotation because it just sounds exhausting. But building things on the side outside of your, what I call a job, like your main focus,
Yeah,
because you don't really know what's going to happen.
exactly.
And you were doing it in a really kind of, it sounds like, a calm, strategic, slow way. And then you had this extra opportunity or this new path kind of available to you when you needed it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the areas that I work with any of my coaching clients on as well. That yes, there are times we'll get into environments that aren't good for us.
Mm.
But when we make those decisions from a place of I need to get out of here, kind of like my divorce and then the other situations, you're not able to make those decisions that are fully aligned with what it is that you need next.
Hmm.
But when you have these other offshoots from your career and
Hmm.
you have other options, it allows you to make it from a place of like, you're not panicking. You're doing it where you have some stability around as well.
Yeah, then your nervous system's not completely freaking out because if as you were going through that divorce, you obviously would have been like, that's so stressful, that's
Yeah.
traumatic. Um, as you said, hard to make clear decisions. And luckily you had that support system. But if you are in kind of like, I really just do encourage people, if they're in a job that's like going well, they're feeling good, they are like enjoying it, that's actually the time to explore
Yeah.
other things that you might want to do, even if it's just literally a hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. And again, at that time, you're doing it. And again, my coaching as well is focused very much on getting clarity on what it is that you want next for yourself, be it in real estate or career or personal life. Um, and when you're getting that clarity from a place where you're able to think through what are your values, what's
Mhm.
important to you, what does your ideal life look like, you're able to get that clarity versus something's happening, these external factors are making you
Mhm.
make a decision in a rush. We're not able to choose as wisely as
Mhm.
we're able to.
So, what were some of the things that were happening to you in your workplace that made you feel that You couldn't really stay there or keep going?
So I've always been a high performer. Every role I've pretty much been tapped on the shoulder saying, "Hey, apply to this and we have this role coming up." So it's been a part of my identity as well. So I think that was one of the things that interrupted. I transitioned from healthcare specifically to med tech because my clients that were coming into me for coaching, because I was doing coaching on the side as well. I wasn't doing it full time at that point. So this is around 2022. I was getting clients from the corporate world that I couldn't relate to because healthcare, we function very differently. Our structure, especially with HR supports, and it's different from corporate. So I purposely selected, this med tech role that I moved into, knowing that I wanted that experience just to be able to better understand the environment that's outside of what I'd always done for the last 16 to 18 years. So it's important that I'm mentioning that because even though things just went insanely crazy after that, I kept on reminding myself it was a choice. I had a sense of agency in making that choice. So I was able to sort of make more peace with it than I would have if I was just thrown into it. I signed on as a strategic manager. And then they had some reshuffling, reorg that as has been happening in the last couple of years in every company. I was asked to take on a broader role, a few extra teams. The role that I'd taken on was a more high profile, more work, more commitment. And I was told by the end of the year, we'll have that reassessment of where your compensation lies and where your title lies, because it was the equivalent of a chief operating officer that I had, but my title didn't align with it. Um, Throughout the year following that change, I was given amazing feedback on how well I was doing, how I was being asked to mentor and coach other leaders in the organization because my teams were the only ones. My team was delivering results. We were the only ones that were performing really well. And then come November of 2024, I started asking about when are we booking that conversation and what do I need to bring into that conversation? And I think it's happened to many people. I didn't know. I thought it was just, more just for myself. But the minute I brought that up, the script flipped so much from telling me for the past 6 months how amazing I was to it became this like nitpicking act every single week. And my reporting structure changed. I started reporting to a new manager. They'd asked me to report to a new manager. And looking back, I think that was her mandate to kind of get me to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I think it was more of how do we get this person to leave because the company's in a very poor financial situation now. But I had a death in the family, and I would get called into calls. And anytime there was no acknowledgement of what I was going on, like, what was going on with me emotionally. And I was always one of those people that professionally, I need to come in, I need to perform, I need to do this.
Mhm.
But there's that disconnect between you don't care about me as a human being who's going through something. And then on top of that, the conversations just became very, very negative, to the point where I would feel like my blood pressure skyrocketed and I would feel this like constant buzzing around my body. I don't even know how to explain it to people, but
Gosh, I so know that feeling or a similar feeling.
yeah. And the guilt because I had taken pride in this identity of somebody that you put me anywhere. I mean, I managed a clinical team during a pandemic and we were seeing patients that would walk in from outside because the rest of the hospital was very contained in patients. But so I'd done work like that and my team had done well and I never got to this point of like physically feeling the symptoms of what I later learned was burnout, and there
Mhm.
was anxiety that was creeping up through that. Um, but it was the attitudes and how they changed towards me as soon as I asked for the correct compensation. And what made it even more difficult was one, that identity piece, and two, this individual on the surface was a mental health advocate. I think they even lead or support a charity and very openly. And I would have a conversation about, look, and I would start talking and they would say, well, we don't have time for this right now. Like we need and it was bad. And they wouldn't be available for any of the conversations.
Right. They just make themselves scarce. So
Yes.
like my blood pressure is increasing as we're having this conversation because I can feel I not only can I empathize with some of it, that feeling of like that anxiety that comes up and those feelings. For me, it always felt like if you're about to cry, that there's like that hot flesh feeling that kind of like goes over your whole body. But I
Yeah.
would never cry. I would just be like in this constant state of just like I don't even know. I guess anxiety. But I have talked to so many people and coach clients who also are in a space where mental health is what they promote, what the actual organization promotes, and internally it's a clown show. Like, it just is it's complete disconnect from what they're talking about and the vision and the mission of the company and what's going on internally. And that in itself creates so much trauma and, like, pain for the person going through it because it's not authentic.
No. And on top of that, it also makes you self-doubt as well, because
Mhm.
I would think it wasn't the work. Like, I loved what I did. I had an amazing team and they were great and so supportive, and my peers were so great and so supportive. And I would have conversations that I would always like almost start questioning myself and my judgment on how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling this way. My doctor actually, and thank God for him, that like 4 weeks prior to I actually took some time off, he kept on saying to me, like, your blood pressure is too high. He made me, thank God, he made me come in every single Monday to come and check, because he's like,
Mhm.
throughout the week, it's going to raise even more, but I need to make sure that after a weekend, what does it look like? But when I finally did need to take some time off, because he forced me to take 2 weeks
Mhm.
off,
Mhm.
I sent in an email saying, I need to just take the next 2 weeks off. I'm available. They all had my personal number. And I'll take the rest of the day to organize my week so that I'm distributing my work among my team and my peers as needed. Everything was cut off within 45 minutes of that. So there was
They,
a
like,
bigger
locked you out of all the,
locked
like
me out completely.
oh, wow. Okay.
And this is, yeah, and they locked a person out who I worked through Christmases and New Year's. And I genuinely cared about my team. So there was that disconnect from the work piece of it, but also I was just, like shut off from my team. And luckily
Mhm.
my team had other ways to connect with me and they all checked in, but it was almost like, let's isolate this person who's already feeling this way. I'm sharing with them that I'm on medication for feeling the way that I'm feeling. None of that mattered. But in hindsight, it was one of those things that I think needed to happen to help me actually put into practice what I was preaching up until that point. It was very easy to coach others on it.
Mhm.
But having to go through the process myself, it's opened my mind to what people could be going through that we don't always realize.
Yeah, the intensity of it, because it's not just a job for most people, especially if you're in that high achiever,
Yeah.
high performer category. It's like it does become part of your identity, but it's also you want to be if service is important to you and a value of yours, which you
Mhm.
said. I have something similar. I call it contribution. I want to bring something to the table, and then when you're basically being pushed off of that table,
Yeah.
it can be really disconcerting, and it just really you become disoriented.
Yeah. And you feel that's the other part of work that I needed to do with my own coach after following that because I was attaching so much of my identity to that, you feel disposable. And then you feel, if I'm not working, who am I? And I couldn't use, and obviously I can't use that title anymore.
Mhm.
So all of those things start to have an effect. And also, I think you become, because your work, you're spending so much of your time and energy into it. When that abrupt disconnection happens, and I know with others, sometimes it's due to termination or other things that happen, you almost kind of lose your like sense of purpose. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm a lot of things outside of my work. I'm a
Yeah.
mom. I'm a dog
Yeah.
mom. I'm a wife. I'm
Yeah.
all these things. But it's very difficult to sometimes remind yourself of those things when you're just so stressed out.
Yeah, absolutely. When I left my toxic job in 2021, that was like just a real thing. Um, and I knew I had to leave, like, the writing was on the wall pretty quickly. I mean, I hired a coach as I was going through it, and I stayed on with her while after I left that was specifically dealing with toxic workplaces. Like,
Mm,
she was very niche in terms of not just career, but that was her specific thing,
yeah.
and really helped me understand the the mental game that was happening in my head because I was wondering if a lot of it was me, how they were playing the cards from their side of the table. That was really helpful. I definitely feel anyone going through that difficult work situation has to get some kind of support. It doesn't have to necessarily be a coach, but I don't really know how I would have gotten through it because you can only talk to your friends and family about it for so long,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
They mean well, but
Yeah.
sometimes even the words they can use
Yes.
because the training isn't in supporting someone that's going through something like that.
Yeah.
And it just hits you differently. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Some people will be like, how could you leave that job? It's, it's like there's 1,000 people lining up for it behind you. I was like, yeah, I know there are.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can have it at this point because I can't do this anymore, you know?
Yeah. And the other thing that surprised me, so for me, being an immigrant, I thought my mother would be the one that's most upset about this happening. I called her and and she goes, "Thank God you needed this to happen." And
Wow.
that was just that light bulb moment of, okay, people that love and care about me
Yes.
could see things that I wasn't
Yeah.
ready to see myself because you're so in it. And again, that high performer thing, it's just we forget how much it can impact us negatively as well.
Yeah, it can work almost against us because I think they're like high performers, high achievers, they're very loyal too in general.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, I don't want to leave my team. I don't want to leave the people around me, have a negative impact. There's so many things to think about. So you clearly had to dig deep and find the courage to make a change.
Mhm.
What would you say to anyone listening who is scared to make a leap and make that change?
I think first of all, look at what isn't working. So in my case, I had signs. I think I had a lot of personal stuff going on before that, but I had all these signs telling me that the work the environment, it wasn't the work was amazing. The people that were on my team were amazing, but the overall environment was not aligned with who I
Mhm.
am. For example, there was, gossip about the other leaders, and there was information about others that it may be like it could be about their health information or about their sexual orientation that was just blurted out without any um, concern about their emotional well-being or
Mhm.
their psychological safety. So I knew for a while that this, for I would say 3-4 months leading up to it, that this is an environment that I will not thrive or survive in. It's at that time I was thinking thrive, but I knew I would survive. I now looking back, I knew I couldn't survive in
You're
that.
downgrading it to
I was
survive.
yeah. And so one is just, do that assessment because there are times in any role, in any job, even in our work now, there are days where it's like there's a lot going on and I need to manage it all because being you're an entrepreneur, you're the CEO and you're also the cleaner, you're doing it all. But if you just step back one and just do that assessment of what isn't working and what is working, like do that full holistic assessment of it and what are some of the things that are truly against your values, what you need out of life, what you need out of this phase? Because there are times I think I was joking with somebody that if this was younger me and I was spoken to the way I was, or things were happening this way, I may have tolerated it because my focus was get all the experience, get all of
Mhm.
this. And it may have lasted another, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. But the stage of life that I'm at right now, that's not okay with me. So again, every season of your life is going to ask you to either tolerate or not tolerate different things that
Mhm.
may be different in another season. And then also look at what is your plan beyond just the immediate change. Because I've had people that come to me saying, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to leave this job. These are the issues. But then I also ask them those questions about what is working? What is something that's asked you to stay so that you can plan your exit, but you're not rushing through it. You're not getting
Mhm.
into a situation that can impact you negatively. In my case, one of the things that obviously I hadn't planned for this to pan out the way it did financially, you don't realize that a steady income has a
Mhm.
lot of benefits that come
Oh,
with it.
yeah.
And I had never been on EI up until that point. I had to go because of the medical reasons. And you don't realize that that also is something that you need to factor into your
Mhm.
overall planning because it's not a quick turnaround. Mine took, I think, like 8 or 9 weeks because I'm also a realtor. So it took a lot longer.
Yes. Yes.
So
yeah, if you're a freelancer, that can affect EI. And but I'm just going to drop a note in here. I've said this on another episode, but if you have the opportunity to go on EI, take it, because there's a lot of, I work with so many clients who they're like, I don't want to be on that level of support. I don't want to. It is literally your money that you have been paying into off of every single paycheck. So please go look at your paycheck, see that the dollars are coming off of it. It is literally your money. So I'm just going to say that.
yeah, I want to actually just double click on that again. That was another one of those identity things, because
Yes.
when I've never had to worry about
Mm-hmm.
finances in my life up until now, and now we're good. But it was just being my name attached to receiving unemployment insurance
Mm-hmm.
that was tough. Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it can hurt your pride. And like,
Yeah.
I've had friends who made hundreds of thousands, like corporate jobs, paying
Yeah.
just huge amounts, and then they have to go on EI. And it's like, it's so wounding in a way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I'm not just saying like, get over it. I don't want to be that like tough about it, but it is something that so many people go through. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything about you. It's nothing negative about you. It's just like, this is just a phase. And like, it literally is an insurance policy, right? So you've paid into an insurance policy. You're now cashing it in temporarily.
Yeah.
It can only go for so long. It's not a permanent fix.
Yeah.
And be grateful for it. When I did that, I was like, okay, I'm going to have serious gratitude for this, because I went on EI through a medical leave. Like, I was able to take a medical leave because I couldn't return to the job. And my mom was in palliative care. So my ability to look for a job and to even freelance was like, I had no bandwidth. So I was like, okay, this is a gift right now, and this is temporary, but this is what I need to get through.
Yeah. And that's what those supports are there for as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're not the easiest to navigate, but that's what they're there for.
Oh no, of course it's not easy to navigate, but it can be helpful, and I know for me it was. The other thing that I like to add, when you're talking about looking at what's working, what's not working, one of my favorite coaching questions, and I've been asking myself this a lot because I feel like I'm procrastinating a couple things. What is it costing you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a deep question. And I think really pondering on that, like really taking your time with answering that. In my case, when I was going through it, my coach did ask me that. My coach also asked me, try to envision 6 months from now you're here, and then try to envision 6 months from now you're not here. Like, what looks different in the two scenarios? And yeah, like we sometimes, I think we're not having the right conversations even with ourselves, that we tend to just, and regardless of the fact that I've had a ton of training in coaching itself, we can't self-coach ourselves through this process. You do need somebody else that can be your partner, that can help you really listen to yourself. Coaches, as I'm sure you do in your practice, like we're your mirrors. Like, we're able to listen to you, even work through that self-doubt, that criticism that you'll have for yourself. And it allows you to really dig deep and make decisions that are, again, back to being aligned with what it is that you want in this phase of your life.
Okay, so I love those questions that your coach asked you. So what if someone comes back, because I feel like this could come back, someone would say this, I can't even picture, if I'm not at this job, even though it's brutal, I can't even picture what something else could look like. They'll shut it down, and they'll be like, I can't picture anything. What would you say to that person?
So I have a framework. I call it the next move framework. And what I say to them in the very first session is, if there was no limit, like, think about like what would be your ideal career. Like, for myself, when I think about that, I would love to just write all day. I'm not a great writer, but I would just love to write all day and put my books out there in the world and just support everyone in any issue that comes their way. So that's sort of my big, if everything was perfectly aligned in the world and I could do that. Okay, so then you work yourself backwards from that. What is possible in this moment that you could do that's still aligned to that? In my case, I could write blogs. I could write about my experiences that can still help people. Okay, then when you look at like, who are people, then you make connections with people that are doing work similar to that. Reach out. And I'm sure in your line of work, Alana, like
Mhm.
I find that people are so willing to
Yes.
support each other. Um, I cannot stress that enough. Like reach out when you see somebody else that's doing the type of work that you want to do or a line of work that you want to get into. And I'll go back to coaching. When I first started about 4 years into my coaching journey, I was ready to stop everything and get into coaching full time. And I just networked with different people who were in the role. And one of the individuals, I'm still friends with her, she said, look, it's a wonderful world, but do not drop everything and get into it.
Mhm.
Plan your entrance into it so that
Mhm.
you're stabilizing the rest of your life around this versus just, you know, belly flop into it and then you're
Mhm.
drowning. Like it's
Mhm.
so people will give you both sides of it, like what's working really well, what are some of the things that you may not have thought of because you're not in that environment yet. But I always say, like, go with that mindset of what if nothing was holding me back? What if the universe was supporting me and
Yeah.
moving forward with this? What would I do? And then scale it back to what's possible now. You could still work towards that future, but there's always these steps that you can take towards it.
Yes, and I remember talking to someone recently, and I had no idea that she was gonna say this, a coaching client, when I would talk to we started dreaming. I was like, "What are some of the things you would do?" And she said something about, like, running retreats, which I had no idea that this was gonna come out of her mouth, like, at all.
Yeah.
And but what was interesting about that is, like, okay, you don't have to do retreats now, but what is it about running retreats? What is it about
Mhm.
probably the connecting with the people, that creating a safe space for people? How can we distill some of those elements
Yeah.
into maybe a more plausible career move right now?
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be a common thread. There's something about that we can bring into the here and now, so that
Yeah.
you don't have to just, like, jump into this scary world, or it feels too overwhelming, or it's not feasible because you have mortgage and all of these things, right?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
And I'll relate it back to even the real estate work. So initially, I had only, went through the schooling and got my license just for myself because I wanted to make sure that when I'm buying or selling homes, it's, 20, 40, 60K, depending on the value
Yeah.
of the home. I'm paying somebody else. I have my MBA, like I'm somebody
Yes.
that's good at this stuff, so I could do this myself. But when all of this happened, this is an area that I could explore a bit more. And initially, there was a little bit of that hesitancy around, you know, you have your MBA, you've been an executive leader, and as people call it, like you're just a realtor now. And some of it is internal, some of it is external. But I again thank God for my coach because he's amazing. And it's asking the question that you were just asking now, like what are some common threads? And for me, I mean, my focus is really helping people that are going through transitions. For example, it's an elderly client who's now downsizing and they're trying to organize, what all do they have and what do they need to do with the finances that they have? How do they distribute that so that they can live a comfortable life still? How do they plan even for estate planning? I'm not an expert in it, but I'm that connector. I'm that person that can
Mhm.
help support them with that. And then I take in my healthcare experience. I have the empathy and compassion that another realtor may not have because they haven't gone through those experiences of literally holding people's hands when they're going through major
Mhm.
life losses.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, there's the confidentiality and the privacy elements that come from all of my work. So everything that I've done up until now, I can use that to serve the population that I'm working with now. And that's in this phase of life. It may change in 2 years from now, but this is
Mhm.
what I'm doing now. And I absolutely love it.
Don't you find that seems to be the way for everyone? It's like you have all these career experiences, all of these jobs, random, whatever it is, and they all seem to give you a skill that you need now
Yeah.
or that
Yeah.
you use now. Like, no matter how random the job is, like, I can think back to every single thing I've done. And I was like, okay, I still actually use that skill in some capacity, or it's given me the empathy I needed, or it's given me just the framework for something. I find that very interesting.
Yeah. And even, when we look at our negative experiences, and it could be in
Yeah.
personal or even career, it's if nothing else, it's taught me how not to treat people.
Mhm.
It's taught me how, when your team is supported, and even with all of this going on, my team showed up. They were going above and beyond. And especially when I hadn't taken the leave yet and I was going through those health issues, I mean, they worked way more than I'm forever
Mhm.
grateful for how they
Mhm.
supported me, but it's because we had that relationship. And it's one of those things where, when you're pushing people down and when you're micromanaging and when you're doing all of those things, people like it does the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So balance that out, like support others that are around you. So every negative experience is teaching you something as well.
Oh, it is, absolutely. Um, and yeah, obviously we're not a micromanager because the team does not show up for a micromanager. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have micromanagers listening because they're not going to be on this podcast
Yeah.
or be interested in these topics. The team will not show up for micromanagers. The team will not come and rally around you when you're down if you are just an awful leader. That's not going to happen. So it says a lot about you and your leadership skills for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, what would you say to someone who's feeling really stuck? Like they can't actually make a decision because I feel like that's a theme that comes up with a lot of people is like, I don't know what to do next. And I feel like I can't make a move.
Yeah. I think one is asking, like, what isn't working right now? So understanding that. Two, looking at what gives them the most joy. So looking at their values, like when do they feel the most alive? And then even ask their peers, their friends, their family, what are you doing and what are they coming to you for? So for me, coaching was one of the things that people would come to me from all walks of life and say, hey, I want your input. Can you coach me through the situation? Coaching wasn't the word they used, but essentially that's what it was. So what do people come to you for? When are you most lit up when you're doing, like when I write, I can write till 11 p.m., 1 a.m. I don't get up. And it's like, what would you do if you didn't need to get paid for it? Like, what
Yeah.
would you do?
Yeah.
Ask yourself those questions.
I know. I feel like some people shut down with that question because they're like, well, there's no point in getting into that because I can't be paid for what I want to do. But
Yeah.
again, we can apply it and distill it down to something that you can be paid for. And that question about like, what do people come for you for is really helpful. Or what do they kind of rely on you for? Or what do they kind of need your expertise on? I get asked a lot, like, can I pick your brain? Like that is a question that and because it's partly because I have so many crazy, weird experiences with so many different industries that I've dipped my toe in so many things. Well, this would make sense because I now have like just basically a rainbow of things to pull from. So that I've recognized is a strength that I can bring to the table and I've noticed it. So it's like noticing what people like ask you for.
Yeah. And women, I find women have a difficult time acknowledging that the fact that people, and you'll start to see patterns when you start and sit with it, you'll start to see patterns, the types of topics and questions people are coming to you for, and acknowledging that that may be one of your superpowers that we need more of. We sometimes think, and my husband jokes about this, I'm a very organized person and I'll say, well, like anybody could do this. And now with AI and all these things, and he's like, no, it doesn't come that easy.
Yes, and then I just bring that up, like acknowledging what you are good at. And I think women, and I will put myself into this camp for a long time, just sweep their strengths under the carpet and they don't really want to acknowledge them. They don't want to sit in them. They don't want to. I think there's such a humility piece that comes with a lot of people, especially, that they don't want to actually acknowledge what they're good at and tell people what they're good at.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb.
It really is. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
You know, I read a book and I can't remember the name of it. But it said something along the lines of when we don't showcase or when we don't share what we're good at, we're actually doing people around us a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
So things that come to us easily, it's not that we're boasting. We're just showcasing what we're good at so that others can either use us or get that support from us or build that in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it a little bit more openly so that it becomes more common for more of us to do it.
Right, and it's coming from that place of service, which I know is important to you, and it's a different framework for showcasing your strengths. It's everyone's good at something. Like everyone has so many talents and things they're good at. They just it's just easy to lose sight of that, especially if you have been through a toxic workplace or toxic boss situation. You get so beaten down for so long, and it's usually in like little micro ways for that you really lose sight of it. Like
Yeah.
you become so disconnected from what you're good at. And that is very, again, disorienting.
Yeah, 100%. And that brings up the fact that like surround yourself with the right people and be in environments that help you thrive. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's now having been on the other side, there is no way that any of us in this day and age, with all the resources that we have,
Mm-hmm.
we should just be surviving or
No.
struggling. There's so much support available. There's so many free resources available that'll help you better understand what you need next. And if you're able to get that coaching support, get that support from around you, because we none of us should be, especially like with our work, we shouldn't be suffering at
No.
work.
No. And I love group coaching programs for someone if you are if you really have a smaller budget to put in towards personal development. Group coaching programs can be so amazing because obviously you're getting the coaching, but you're going to be in a container where people are also trying to move forward with their life and they're going to want to raise you up. So you're not just getting the benefit of the coach, you're getting the benefit of the people around you.
Yeah, yeah. And people around you are so important because one of the things I found was I am in, after having gone through the traumatic relationship 11, 12 years ago, I'm in a very healthy, supportive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you're around people that don't have a similar environment where when I was back doing my MBA and some of the other things that I did, people would say like, like, how does it work? Like, and they make you almost question the support that you actually do have. So,
Mm-hmm.
how does it work? And you're taking time away from family. No, like I have a group, like, an environment at home where we're supporting each other, we're building each other up. And so, being around people that have similar environments, or at least like creating that for
Mm-hmm.
the people that you're around, so that you're all moving forward versus I found there's a lot more of this negative downwards talk that tends to happen when people themselves aren't moving forward, and then they see you moving forward, and they'll try to kind of pull you back a little.
Oh, it's I love this, the simple analogy of the crabs in a bucket. Like I
Yeah.
always think of this, right?
Yes.
Like you put a bunch of crabs, one tries to escape, the other crabs like yank it down
Yes.
because
Yeah.
and this is really the way it works. If you're trying to grow and change and you want something different for yourself, unfortunately, there's going to be people around you where that triggers them and they want you back to where you started.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to get your little claws out and you have to like you have to really push your way out. And yeah, and that comes with a whole other thing, just leaving certain things behind and just even leaving your workplace behind. Like you talked about how you loved your team and your coworkers and so much about it you love, but so there is like it's a difficult decision even if you know it's in your highest and greatest good to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was coaching, and there was also a little bit of therapy that needed to go along with this because I was just in a very bad place at the beginning of this year. And one of the things that it was my counselor that mentioned was it's almost like you have to mourn that whole thing that happened that you're no longer a part of. And you just process it that way. And you need to treat it as, something has just, and it sounds horrible to say, but something has just died. Like,
Hmm.
mourn it, and then only like sit through the grief, walk through the steps, and then you'll be able to move forward. Otherwise, you're sitting there still, sulking over what happened, because that, like, for me, it it was a part of my journey. It actually helped shape some of the work that I do now and how I support others. But that's not the full story of me anymore. Like it's in the past.
No, it's just like a little chapter, right? But an important chapter. But yeah, the grief part, I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like that's also something we sweep under the carpet is the grief when we make in a transition. So it's exciting to move to something, but we also have to let what we were doing go.
Yeah.
And I'm an emotional person, so I feel like I really feel that when I leave something, as excited as I am to move forward to something, I feel like it takes me a while to move through that.
Yeah, we have our routines built and all those things.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I never thought I would miss it, but we were working on Teams, and I hardly ever do any work on Microsoft Teams
Oh,
anymore.
Microsoft Teams.
Microsoft Teams, yeah. So
Yes.
I was visiting somebody the other day and they were still working, and their
The
ding
ding,
from the team, and it just triggered me thinking,
the
oh,
ding.
and then for a second I thought, do I miss it? No,
You do not miss the
I
Microsoft
don't.
Teams ding. That is like I don't know how they've created that thing, but I think it's every ding traumatizes every cell of your nervous system. This is
Yes.
my theory on Microsoft Teams, but anyway. Okay, so I want to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, and that is, in the spirit of helping people ditch the struggle, what do you feel is most important to commit to?
Getting your clarity and your capacity work done. So what I mean by that is, one, understanding what it is that you need. As I mentioned before, your values in this phase of life, what it is that you need, but equally as important is your capacity. A part of that is your emotional capacity. There are times, and I think looking back, March, April time this year, there are times where emotionally, physically, you're just not ready to make that decision, get the right supports. And then the other part is financial. So often, and it's actually frustrating now, having gone through the process myself, that um, coaches and even you'll hear things in other places where it's like, make the jump, you'll figure it out later. Ideally that would be amazing if we could do that. But in this, especially in the current environment economically,
Mhm.
it's not the right way to do things, because chances are you might end up in somewhere that's even worse off for you. So take a little bit of time. And what you said right at the beginning of this conversation, that to figure out what you actually want, starting your what we call side hustles,
Mhm.
or your passion projects on the side, start looking at that when things are going well, because that way, when a time like this comes, for me, I was so blessed that I had things to fall back on. But that's not always the case, and people aren't always able to do that. But do that assessment of, get your clarity, get your capacity in check, because when you make decisions from those places, you will go that much further and you'll be that much more aligned with what it is that you need.
It's just sitting down and reflecting on what you want, really. And we don't really do that. I mean, unless you are truly in the personal development world, and I feel like we do, like, hopefully are moving towards this, and we're listening to podcasts like this, so we do that. But it's such a huge difference, especially for that getting unstuck piece. If you have some idea of what you want, it's a lot harder to stay stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. So, how can people find out about your work and work with you?
So my website is jyotipannu.com, JYOTIPANNU.com. And I'm on Instagram with Jyoti, initial K, PANNU. And my email is also jyotikpannu@gmail.com. I do have a podcast as well. It's called Beyond the Move.
Yeah.
I don't have as many guests as you have, Alana, but we're getting there. And yeah, even if you have a question, even if you're not ready for coaching or real estate support, if you have a question, reach out. As I mentioned before, our community, especially those of us that are in coaching, we're always willing to support each other and,
Yes.
and help move forward. And there's a lot of free resources on my website as well.
Yeah, you do have some great free resources, and I will put all the links to your socials and your website in the show notes. So definitely check these out, because your experience and what you bring to the table is incredible. And I have loved our conversation today.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. Be sure to follow this podcast, visit alanarosa.com, and of course, share it so we can build each other up. And before I go, remember to be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.